One of the most memorable weeks in NBA history, with blockbuster trades, everyone's jaws glued to the ground from the Luka Doncic trade. De'Aaron Fox is now a Spur. It is all kicking off, Sam. And in this episode, we're going to zoom out a little bit. You know, we've talked a lot about individual players, performances, coaching. You know, the team had a good run recently, but we got a lot of basketball left. And I feel like some really interesting trades happened. And when you start to look forward about this team, I think we can learn a little bit from these trades. So today's episodes, we're going to be looking a little bit about how we think the Luka Doncic, Anthony Davis trade, which I want to get your thoughts on in a minute, will impact Charlotte's first round pick from Dallas, which is top 2 protected in 2027. We're going to talk a little bit about De'Aaron Fox trade and kind of what sorts of value that sets for a player of that caliber, who some would say maybe LaMelo Ball is similar. We're going to talk a little bit about how both Dallas and Sacramento explored the trade market in very different ways, and which one of those ways is kind of we can learn from is the best way. For if we look forward here for the Hornets, who maybe have to get involved in the trade market. And then also a question I've seen a lot on social media is like, why aren't Charlotte getting in on any of these deals? So we're not talking X's and O's basketball today. We're zooming out a little bit and looking at the wider NBA. But Sam, first tell me, where and when were you when you saw the Luka Doncic news? I mean, this is a Hornets podcast, but this is a story that's cut across international sports. Where were you and how did you react?
So I woke up to a text just saying, the text said, the first text I read said, that trade with an emoji. I thought I thought LaMelo got traded when I woke up. I would
think the same thing. If I got that text, I would think the same thing.
And I first thought was LaMelo got traded, and the second thought was the Hornets got like nothing back. that was my first immediate thought. And then I checked Twitter, because I don't scroll Twitter, and I'm calling it Twitter because I'm a boomer. I'm locked in on that. It's not, I'm never calling it X. I don't scroll Twitter. I have certain accounts. I follow people on there. I'll sometimes scroll, maybe, but mainly I just have notifications on for specific accounts. And
it's a wise move.
Just so I get the news with it, right? Ever since Twitter changed to an algorithm thing, you didn't see things in real time. Like I hated that, so I just switched. Yeah. I've been on that for a while, and then I see it. I see the long list of notifications from Shams and Bobby Marks and all the other people, and it's like, what the hell? And as I'm scrolling through my notifications, I see I've not been hacked or whatever, like, or this is real. It's like, damn, what's happening? And then I finally click it, see the graphic. It's crazy. It's crazy. Genuinely, not since Gobert tested positive for COVID and the league shut down have I been that surprised by anything in NBA Twitter. Like, that's
what time was it? You say you woke up. What time was it?
It was 7 a.m.
Okay, so
for me.
That's at that point, you're up at that point, right? Your brain's synapses are firing, going, fuck, NBA trade news, wake up, Sam.
I was like, what the? I still couldn't really even wrap my head around it. And I was like, surely there's more to it because this doesn't make sense. And not that we found out more, somewhat more, but the trade is nuts. It's truly insane. Like
they just don't happen, right? You just don't see incredible franchise players, top 5, 10 players in the league traded for each other. Like you don't see them traded generally, especially not for each other. I mean, I was similar to you. I woke up in the morning. I didn't stay up for, I think it was a Hornets game that night. I didn't stay up for the Hornets game. And I woke up and I woke up relatively early and I was scrolling and I saw someone talking about that trade is nuts. And I was like, oh, there must have been a trade last night. I'll go on my notifications and I'll say, whoa. Yeah. And then I basically sat in bed and my wife's downstairs with my little one thinking probably like, is James not going to get up soon? But I just pretended to be asleep for a further 30 minutes just so I could like get to the bottom of this. And like, I came downstairs and like, there was no like, good morning, honey. How are you? It was just like, Jess, Luka Doncic got traded. I was like, I had to tell someone. And like, she knows enough. She was like, what? She was like, what's going on there? So, hey, just look, it's moments like that like still like make your hair stand up on the back of your neck, right? When like things like that happen, and we get used to like the rhythms and the beats of the NBA, and there's an all-star, and he's decided to request a trade and he wants out, and it kind of like feels a little bit of formality at times. And then you have moments like this, which just like jolt you into life. It's when it doesn't involve your team, it's incredible popcorn to watch.
Yeah, and just the whole Jimmy Butler thing. I was like, Jimmy Butler's just sitting on the sidelines when all the stuff is happening.
Brandon Ingram, still lingering out there as well. I think there could be legitimate, like 5-6 All-Star players traded at this trade deadline. It's
I'm here for this. I love this. The NBA has so much life in it now because of all this. And so even All-Star weekend, I couldn't give a shit about All-Star. But the notion of LeBron, Luka, AD, All-Star weekend, that is interesting now. Like the body language in all of that is going to be really interesting. So no, like there's so many like layers to it. The Mavericks fans, I was on the Mavericks subreddit earlier, and it is a depressing place to be. Like people canceling.
We're accepting all any Mavericks fans looking for a new team. The Charlotte Hornets community, we open you with open arms.
Yes.
And if you really are just love pain, come join us.
Come through. Listen, you want to forget about your pain and welcome some new pain? Come on down. Yeah. Like people are coming after the GM in ways I've never really seen before. Canceling season tickets. Like there's all these stories
press conference didn't help his cause either, by the way.
No,
I mean, wow, some of the quotes coming out of that, like just I do think he'll like watch that back after he'd done it and be like, who was that? What was I saying? Like, and it's hard, right? When you're in there in person, it's easy to be like, you're on the spot, you're talking, like you're probably thinking about 1,000 things of what you should say and shouldn't say, and sometimes things just come out, and immediately you look back at it and you go, why did I say that? And Nico Harrison just killed that. But I mean, look, I'd love to come on here with some nuanced take about how I like, I actually think I like the move for Dallas. I'm just with like everybody else, which is like, what are you doing? Like shifting your timeline forward a long time, putting your franchise in the hands of two 30-something-year-old aging stars who neither of which have a proven track record of carrying a team as a number one. And like you didn't even get picks back. Like you got one pick back, but like you had to put in a second round pick. The Lakers not doing that if you put in a second round pick. I mean, Rob Pelinka, he's got some stuff wrong, but I mean, he's just like swindled one of his all-time long best friends. And like he'll be playing honest and like, oh no, it's a good deal for both teams. He's absolutely swindled him.
Absolutely, fully cooked him. And honestly, people have drawn this comparison before, but I'm gonna give some love to Mitch Kupchak, who pulled off a very similar deal with Memphis with Pau Gasol when Kupchak was with the Lakers. That was one of those deals where Memphis didn't really shop around Pau Gasol, similar to this, and Lakers made out like bandits. Now, long term, it worked out okay with Memphis. They got like baby Gasol out of it, who turned into a really nice NBA player. But at the time, it was like, what the hell? Like, you just gifted the Lakers a championship. And that's what this feels like. Not right now for the Lakers, but they have a real post-LeBron plan, and it is crazy how they've been able to pull this off. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about the trade. Let's talk a little bit about how we think this affects Charlotte. So for those who don't know, Charlotte owned Dallas's 2027 first-round pick, top 2 protected, from the PJ Washington Grant Williams trade. I think Seth Curry was also involved in it. Was he? He was in Mavericks at one point. Yeah. So again, I liked the trade at the time. I still like it now. Look, Grant Williams getting injured, makes the trade look different, but you can't control those things. Like it could have happened to PJ and it looked the other way around. I'd love that trade at the time for Charlotte. Let's just go really broad. Do you think this trade is a good thing for the Charlotte Hornets?
Absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Because the Dallas Mavericks accelerated their timeline in a massive way. They got older and more brittle. And I know Luka has his own injury concerns, but Anthony Davis is something. He's in his own stratosphere when it comes to durability. Then you factor the age and where they could potentially be in 2027, 2 years from now. Like, that's a really the fact that the Hornets have their pick in 2027 with all that uncertainty I think is only a positive for Charlotte.
So I think it could be. Like, I absolutely agree it could be. I'm being careful not to just like jump to conclusions because I don't think Dallas are done. Like, I don't think they're done making moves. I don't think they're going to keep Gafford, Lively, Davis, Washington. I think they're a little bit unbalanced roster at the moment, and they've got more assets. They've got under the tax in this trade. They've got more assets back with that Lakers pick. There are definitely moves that they can make. So I think I want to wait and see what the final outcome is of this, because I think it could look a little bit different. I agree with what you mean. Like, they've gone all in for the next 2 to 3 years. And the worry I have, just look, I've covered the Charlotte Hornets for basically 20 years now. I'm always going to look at things glass half empty, because normally they are. Right. Is if they're all in the next 2 to 3 years, they could actually still be good in 2027. That is still 2 to 3 years away, right? I mean, by the time after the season the draft pick conveys, Anthony Davis will be 33 years old. Kyrie Irving will be 34 years old. Here's a little bit of trivia time for you, Sam. Sam, how many All-Stars have there been since 2010 over the age of 33? Okay, if you think both Davis and Kyrie, this is an impossible question, by the way, but it's fun and make you look stupid. Since 2010, how many All-Stars have there been over the age of 33?
So, not the number of individuals.
Yeah,
like
just
LeBron,
individual, not like LeBron James doing it 5 times. Yeah,
okay.
like LeBron is 1.
So
okay.
LeBron,
I'll give you that hint,
KD.
right? I'll give you that hint.
Okay. So I would say in total 5.
Okay. There's been at least 25.
Oh, okay. Rip.
Yeah. The stat muse cut me off on that. Okay.
Okay.
There have been 11 all NBA players. Obviously, All-Star, a little bit, a few more spots, a little bit looser category, injury placements. 11 all NBA players at the age of 33 or older, a higher caliber of player. Can you name? I'll let you keep naming until you get one wrong. All right.
Okay, hold
so
on.
You can fire away. We're reloading here. This is the second barrel.
All-Stars that are 33 and up, the last how many years? Or all time?
No, this is people who've made the all NBA team at age 33 and up.
Okay. Well, LeBron.
And there's 11 since 2010. Yes.
Anthony Davis. Well, he's not over 33 yet.
Over 33. Yeah, no, he is not that. That's where he'll be in 2 years.
DeRozan?
I don't believe so. Not on my list.
Oh.
Not made all NBA. I think he's been all-star, not all NBA.
I don't know.
You see, you're missing a Mr. Chef Curry.
Okay.
Chris Paul.
Okay.
Pau Gasol, Dirk Nowitzki, Kobe Bryant, Manu Ginobili, Steve Nash, Tim Duncan, Jimmy Butler. All right. Only 11 players. So if we look forward to 2027 here, there is still a world, right, where they are probably definitely all-star caliber players. Probably less of a world where they're all NBA players at that point, just because of games played and longevity. But I think everyone's being by 34, they'll be in a wheelchair and semi-retired. This is the modern NBA. People are playing longer now. Health and medic, care and physiotherapy, all that stuff. That's getting people playing longer. So I'm not convinced that they're going to be some washed up, overpaid old guys by 2027. I'd love it if they were, but I don't know if that will be the case.
But I think with specific to Anthony Davis, it's the age and the durability, right? It's that 1-2 combo with him that has me and other Hornets fans hopefully pretty excited about the potential. Because when the deal was done initially last year, everyone's pretty on board that the Mavericks were still going to be good, assuming Luka was going to be there. just on that off chance he wanted to go like to Miami or something like that to force his way out, that was like the one like dangling possibility of the Mavericks being bad by the time that pick came up. At worst, I think it's a push of like of how things were, and just that I think a really real possibility that things bottom out. Because like there's not a good history of teams like just selling or trading off their best players like this. And there's a lot of negativity around the franchise. And I don't know. Like
but that will all just go if they start winning, that will just disappear. Like,
well, that's the funniest thing. If the Mavericks win it all right now, and then all those Mavericks fans that are complaining, calling for Nico's head and all this stuff, have to like applaud him and all this stuff and walk all that stuff back. That's the funniest outcome out of all of this. If the Mavericks
just like the Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, the boos and Spectrum Center. Hornets fans are walking that back, saying I was wrong. Literally 2 months into the next season, into Miller's rookie season. Like it, fans will like react in a very strong, aggressive way, and then they'll very quickly go, oh, "What do I know? I'm not out there scouting other players and stuff like that. Like sometimes these guys are, but yeah, no, your durability is definitely a huge thing. Between Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis combined, they've only played 55% of regular season games over the past 3 seasons. And I'm telling you right now, if they play 55% of games, like that team is not going to be a top 4 seed in the West, 5 seed in the West, because they will not have enough elsewhere. And I can only see that number really going down in the long term. Like as these guys get older and they have more miles on their body, like both of these guys came into the league at 18. It's not like they played, you know, college basketball to the age of 21 where they only had to deal with like 24 5-game seasons. They've got a lot of miles, a lot of surgeries on their body. So I absolutely agree. I think the injury upside of like a year where just like people are hurt and that pick is way higher than it should be, I think that has gone up. But also, let's wait and see what they turn that LA pick into, or Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively into, because then you might get a third guy who, you know, I don't know, a Jeremy Grant or someone who's like not great, but in a regular season when you're playing against the Charlotte Hornets or the Washington Wizards, even if Davis and Kyrie are out, they can still carry you over the line.
Yeah, they may get involved in the Jimmy Butler stuff, you know, or like Brandon Ingram, like you mentioned before. You're not wrong, but I think I feel pretty good about it. The fact the Hornets have their pick in 27 made me happy when I woke up and saw that, because I thought the Mavericks got worse and put themselves in danger of going the wrong way. Where if they didn't do the deal, you know, nothing has changed. But for them, just to pivot quickly, go back to the Mavericks thing. I don't want to like defend the trade, but I do like the idea of them going big in the West when you have to deal with like the Grizzlies, the Nuggets, the Timberwolves. Like they are equipped to handle the Western Conference bigs, really like most teams aren't right now. And I think there is something to that. And I'm curious if that's what they kind of were going for. Kind of the same way kind of Minnesota built a team to defeat the Nuggets. This kind of feels like that.
Well, look, they're going to focus to be like a defensive juggernaut. That's what they've said. And like the LA Clippers are a really good example. If you can be like a really good elite defensive team, you'll just generate enough turnovers and like transition opportunities that you'll just like win enough games through your defense, right? And that's what they did before Kawhi was back this year, and it was James Harden and a bunch of role players. Just their defense was elite, and their floor has been pretty high, even though they've been missing a lot of guys, like a lot of the time for the last couple of years. And I think that's probably almost the model that Dallas will be going for. So it's interesting. If I was to say to you right now in 2027 that you had to bet your house on which teams would be better than the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference,
okay,
which teams are you picking? If you had to bet your house in 2027 that these teams, assuming health and, you know, like, you know, reasonable health. So like, it's reasonable to assume the Mavericks they're not going to play 82 games, these guys. Where are you falling?
So OKC for sure.
Yep. Yeah, I match up on that one.
I put Houston in that.
Yeah, I match on that one too. Too many assets, too much young talent. They'll find a way. They're not going backwards. I agree.
I'll put Denver out there. Out of respect for Jokic. They're always going to be in the mix no matter what, as long as he's there.
Close to my list. Didn't quite make it for that reason because they're like capped out and aging, and they face some of these same issues. But wouldn't shock me at all. Right, would not shock me.
I mean, I'm going Minnesota, assuming Ant's still there at that point. Okay. Looking at this, I think Phoenix bottoms out by then. Golden State not in the mix. San Antonio is a rogue shout for me.
Yeah, I've got San Antonio in my list.
Yeah,
I think San Antonio by 2027 are going to be scary.
Yeah, I don't think.
So we think like worst case scenario, like they would be what, 4th or 5th in the West?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
which is probably somewhere around like the 20th pick.
Right.
But I agree. I've got
basically where they were before. Still, like I don't, you know what I mean? Like I think this trade is for the playoffs. I don't see them really rising up the Western Conference. You know?
Yeah. But look, I know there was a lot of conjecture about this pick, and I think I do edge on your side of things. I know I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate. I edge on your side of things. I think if you could tell me, Charlotte Hornets, you can decide if this trade happens or not.
Yeah.
I would have opted for the trade just because the injury, age downside. And yes, they could do something good with this Lakers pick and other pieces, but like, let's wait till we see it, right? And then I might reconsider. But until that point, you're already proven to me you've made one bizarre move. You could do another. You could go at Kyle Kuzma and think that's the answer, right? So.
Oh man. Oh, how do you feel about the Nick Richards deal? Just because the Lakers need a center, and the market for centers is pretty thin. And if they waited, and do you think there'd have been more opportunity to raise the price for Nick Richards if they hadn't traded him yet?
Well, they're not going to trade the 2031 first for Nick Richards, so you take that off the table. Then at that point, the only thing the Lakers have is the 2025 second round pick that they can trade. And maybe the one that they're getting from Dallas. So that's like 2 seconds. So I think it would be much of a muchness. And like Okogie, like I don't know who are the Lakers sending back in that deal. I don't know if there's anyone who has like the same useful player / flexible contract that could be traded or could be kept or could be waived. So I don't think so. Even though, yes, they would be in need of it. I don't think you're probably getting better value back.
Okay. I agree with you.
All right. Let's anything else on that pick, on that Dallas pick?
No.
All right. Let's move on to our second blockbuster trade of the week. De'Aaron Fox is a member of the San Antonio Spurs. Look, this moved pretty quickly, right? Earlier in the week, it was last week, there was this weird report where it's like he's requested a trade and has a preferred destination. And I read that, I was like, well, this is weird. Like, surely we're going to figure out what the preferred destination is. And we basically figured it out within the 2 minutes. So what the frick was the point of like this whole mystery box preferred destination thing?
Yeah. Is that the workaround to not get fined by the league when you request a trade? Is like, hey,
maybe
we got a mystery team. I'm not saying where I want to go trade it to, not publicly.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason I want to look at this is because you look at De'Aaron Fox. He is a one-time All-Star, made third-team All-NBA once, started his career in a similar position to Ball, went to a bad Kings team. The team was bad, and while he was kind of good for quite a few years, has had more playoff success than Ball. You know, in that Golden State series a few years ago, he was absolutely incredible. And I would say like he's, third team All NBA is nothing to sniff at. Like, that's a heck of an achievement. There's a lot of talented guards in this league, and he made that in the Western Conference. I'll say as well, if he was in the East, he'd be more than one-time All-Star. Like, he would be probably 2 or 3 or 4. But the reason I thought this is interesting is if the Hornets were to trade LaMelo Ball, if they were to pull a Nico Harrison, Luka Doncic type move and like just trade LaMelo Ball overnight, De'Aaron Fox is probably the most comparable player you'll ever see traded on the trade market at this point in time to get an idea of value. And I want to discuss that with you in terms of like, do you think the value that the Kings got for De'Aaron Fox was a good one? If you woke up tomorrow and found out they'd done LaMelo Ball for this trade package, what would you have thought?
I don't like Zach LaVine, so I'd be pissed. You know what I mean? And then when you even look,
why didn't you like him?
It's just for the Hornets timeline, it wouldn't make sense to me. Adding like Zach LaVine doesn't move the needle for Charlotte, right? Given what's going on with the roster, it doesn't make sense to me. If this roster was more mature and you're adding a really solid, well-performing veteran to the mix, all for it. But to this team, I wouldn't be a fan of that.
Yeah, the Hornets are in a different situation to the Kings. The Kings have a mandate to kind of like push for the playoffs. The Hornets right now are obviously in a rebuild. So yes, I think even though players comparisons are somewhat similar, team situation is different. I think it's a very good point.
And then the picks are like kind of right? So one of the picks is the Hornets pick, which is hilarious.
2 seconds. So, it's called the first round pick. It's not. It's 2 seconds.
So, and then the 27 Spurs pick, like we just talked about, San Antonio has a chance to be really good in 2027. And then the 2031 Minnesota pick, which could be really good. Like, we don't know how that Minnesota situation is going to shake out. That's so far in the future that anything can happen there. That's a wild card pick. But the one first round pick isn't really a first round pick. The second one probably is going to be a really low pick, like a low in the 20s, draft.
You think?
Yeah, and then the third one is a bit of a wild card. So then you're looking at City Sissoko. It's like, all right, like, is that enough for your guy?
Yeah.
But if that guy doesn't want to be there, then you're kind of looking like, all right, how can we salvage this? So remaining competitive while moving on from your unhappy star, bringing in Zach LaVine makes sense. But the picks are really, really poor.
They could have got better picks. The Spurs had better picks available. Yeah. They had their own pick this year, and they had Atlanta's pick this year, who's just lost Jalen Johnson. And you would have thought both of those picks would probably be, well, one of them will be in the early teens. So you'd probably think like that would be more valuable than any of the picks they got, and they didn't get either of those, right? So they've definitely got like more. Well, the Minnesota pick for the Kings might be more interesting because it's like more tradable long term because it's further out and maybe has some upside. The one other thing to mention is they did manage to get off the bad salary of Kevin Huerter, who was like had like 16 million or something guaranteed for next year, and they've been trying to dump him for ages. So like that's part of this as well, is like they managed to get off that salary. If they'd not got off his salary, they might have been able to get like another pick or a more improved pick. So that's part of the deal. But I mean, if it was the Hornets, right, you'd think instead of that Zach LaVine coming back, you'd be looking to get a good young player, right? Like a Sohan or a Castle from the Spurs is the foundation. That's kind of how it would feel to me. You want the picks, you want the good young player, and you want the salary flexibility, such as like trading Kevin Huerter, right? Yeah. You want to achieve those three things. Clean your books, get picks, get a good young player. If that had been the trade, like if it had been like Castle, I think that would have been more interesting for Hornets specifically. But do you look at this now and go like, hey, trading LaMelo Ball could make sense if this is the type of return? In fact, before we get into that, do you think this is, I said at the start, I think this is a relatively comparable package. Do you agree with that? Do you think LaMelo would go for more or less than this?
I think it's about right. I always thought with LaMelo, 3 first-round picks minimum. And then it's like, how do you structure the rest of the deal, whether it's expirings and then just a 4th first-round pick or a ready-to-go guy with the 3 first-rounders. I feel like on paper, 3 firsts and a ready-to-go guy makes sense. 3 picks and a young player makes sense, or 4 picks straight up with expirings makes sense. I think that's kind of where it kind of like DeJounte Murray is. Like in that world, this De'Aaron Fox is kind of in that world to me. As far as like the first Murray trade from San Antonio to Atlanta, which also involved the Hornets pick too, right?
That Hornets pick's been traded, I think, 3 times now, I want to say. Yeah. Right? That's been on the move. It obviously started with the Knicks. Then what trade did it get moved with the Knicks? I'm trying to remember now, right? It's moved all around.
To Atlanta, then San Antonio, and then did it go to Detroit at one point? I don't know.
I've lost track. It's been Atlanta, New York, and San Antonio. I know for sure. But I mean, I probably think that De'Aaron Fox right now is viewed as a better player and asset than LaMelo Ball. I think.
Yeah.
By the league. I know Hornets fans will be listening to this and going, that's ridiculous, but I think that's how it's viewed around the league. Bit of a different situation, right? Fox is 27 years old, has 18 months left in his contract before he's going to get a huge extension. LaMelo Ball is a lot younger. He is on the max. He's on a max contract, but remember the max contract for someone coming off their rookie scale is a lot less than a max contract like for De'Aaron Fox. So even though they're both max players and De'Aaron Fox might be getting a max extension, Melo's was actually much more, amenable price per year. It's like 30-odd million, 34 million, something like that. Whereas Fox would be eligible for like in the 40s to the 50 million range. So I think Melo would be younger. He got 4 years left, I think, on his extension, or 4.5 years left on his extension. He's cheaper probably than Fox is going to be over the course of that time. And he shoots. And the reason that's important is because if you've got a great player who draws doubles, Melo can play off them. And De'Aaron Fox, that isn't really what he does. Like, he's not a shooter. That's not the first thing you talk about when you start talking about strengths of De'Aaron Fox. So I do actually think, like, I've talked myself into it now. I think because of those reasons, like kind of age, contract, all those type of things, complementary reasons, I think LaMelo would go for a little bit more than this. And also because like Fox's value is limited because he's already said, like, I want to go to San Antonio.
Right.
I've got 18 months left. That's where I want to end up. And that just takes away your team's leverage. Mm-hmm. And Ball has 4.5 years left. He can't be saying, trade me to LA. Like, that's just not going to work. Like, a team like Orlando would be like, no, we're just going to have you here for 4 years. And we think by the time you win some playoff series, you'll like it here.
Do you think in 2.5 years, the Hornets could find themselves in this exact same position, though, with LaMelo, where he has a year and a half left, and they have to scramble to make something happen?
I do. Like, I've always thought the LaMelo Ball situation would end in him wanting a trade, or the team wanting to trade him. Like, for a mixture of reasons, I think, one, like, players just don't stay with franchises for a really long time, especially when they aren't both having the success they want. Right. LaMelo Ball's not having the personal success that he probably wants. The Charlotte Hornets aren't having the team success they want. That is not a breeding ground for like lifetime loyalty. So I always thought it would end. It would end in that way. I don't know when. It still feels too early at the moment, as I talked about before. But at some point during this contract, I'd be. Here's a quote. What are the percentage odds that LaMelo Ball is on the Charlotte Hornets at the end of this max contract? What would you put that at?
I think 60-40, he's still here.
Wow.
Yeah.
60-40 still here.
So 60% chance he's still.
I'm saying 25% chance he's still here. And I'm not saying that's because that could be for either reason. He wants to go or the team wants to go. Like either way.
Because I think this is this is wishful thinking here. I'm thinking by then this thing's gonna be figured out and they're gonna be winning. That's where I'm coming from. I believe that by the time we get to that point of the contract, the Hornets are gonna have their act together, and he's gonna be the leading guy for a good situation here.
I'll always remember the night of the 2021 draft when the Hornets traded that future first round pick for the Kai Jones selection, right?
Yeah.
And me and Chase were doing the podcast, and we looked at protections on the pick, and we went, oh, it's, lottery protected in 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025, and then it's into 2 seconds. And we both agreed on that night. We're like, look, that's a fantastic trade, because if the Hornets are still in the lottery in 2025, then something seriously effed up has happened, because that shouldn't happen. Because at the time, they're off the back of the play-in. You've got LaMelo Ball, one of the brightest young stars in the league. Like, Terry Rozier was coming off a great year. Hayward had coming off a good year, despite the injury. Like, it was all going in a direction. It's like, by then, surely they'll have figured this thing out. And who could have thought what was going to happen in the next half a decade, Sam? That's what we're approaching now, half a decade. Yeah. It's so interesting seeing moves like this. I mean, look, every situation is different. I mean, we just compared the trade packages for Luka Doncic and De'Aaron Fox, and you could argue that in some ways the Kings got more for De'Aaron Fox than the Mavericks did for Luka Doncic, which is absolutely wild. But I think this is as close a kind of valuation that we'll see on the open market for like the next year or two. So it's just fascinating. Like you said, the hold up here is like the Zach LaVine piece coming back. Like, what could this trade have looked like if the Kings just said, we just want picks back?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder what this looks like. But equally, if the Hornets trade LaMelo Ball, I don't think they would be trading him in that position. I don't think they'd be going, yeah, we want to reset, rebuild again. I think they'd probably want to do what the Kings are doing. It's like, we want to trade, but we want to remain competitive and continue to push forward. So maybe this trade format is more likely for that reason in like a year or two from now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's a good way to look at it. In like 26, 27 in that run, because hopefully by then the Hornets have a more mature situation and could look at a guy like LaVine. I don't know who that guy is now, right? Like, I don't know what the version of Zach LaVine is out there in the league right now that the Hornets would target. But it would make sense, because especially at that point, LaMelo's gonna be making a lot of money. Like, he's gonna be touching $50 million, right under $50 million by the time that contract gets to the final couple of years, right? And then like 46.
I don't think it'll be quite that high, because this is like I said earlier, this is what you call the fun max, because it is capped. Unless he makes like all NBA or something of that nature, then I think he has like bonus systems built in if he makes that. So yeah, by the end of this deal, he gets up to 46 million. So not quite to the 50 stage, but yeah, it's 35 this year. And then it basically goes up 3 million a year, up to 38, 40, etc. Yeah.
That's a good amount of money. So when it comes time to trading and making contracts work, you're gonna have to either take a big expiring or like a Ben Simmons level expiring, or find a veteran who needs a new change of scenery.
But I will say, what you have to remember here is the cap's going to go up. So right now, LaMelo Ball's max is 25% of the salary cap. In 2028-29, LaMelo Ball's max is going to be 22.5% of the salary cap. So even though he's going to be making $46 million a year compared to 35 now, he's actually going to be cheaper in the world of NBA currency, because of how quickly the salary cap is projected to go up following this new TV rights deal, which is why it was always a no-brainer that they paid him the max. And I never subscribed to the idea that they shouldn't, or that they should try and bargain, because this is the fun max. Always is, especially with the rising cap and the new TV deal.
Brandon Miller's going to hopefully be paid, and hopefully things are still going well with Brandon Miller at that point, and he's fully paid. And
that's an interesting one. Yeah. Mark Williams will be up for, extension talks.
That's a big one. That's going to be a big crossroads. Like, that's going to be that is going to be really interesting to see how these new owners handle like hard decisions like that. Cause Mark is clearly their guy. And when that time comes, we'll talk about it, but we'll talk about it later. But that is going to be interesting to see how ruthless these owners are going to be. Hell, even this summer with Trey Mann, I think I could do him a solid after only a couple months. The cap going forward is gonna be super interesting to follow and get an idea of how these guys are gonna work.
Look, Isaiah Hartenstein signed with the Oklahoma City Thunder this offseason for $30 million per year. Right. I think you could probably, like, if you want to look at a yardstick. Do you have this saying in America, a yardstick? Do you know what I mean by that? Okay, right. If you want to look at a yardstick out there for like what is a non-all-star but very good starting center in the NBA earn, I think that's the best one that is like most recent with the salary cap. It's going to be like 10% inflation in the cap next couple of years anyway, right? I think around that probably 28 to 32 million range is probably what you're looking at for a Mark Williams extension, based on what we've seen so far.
Wait, over 4 years, right?
Per year. I'm thinking per year.
Oh my god.
I mean, if Isaiah Hartenstein is making 30 a year, if Nick Claxton is making 28 per year, like, like there's other players who are cheaper, but it's because they signed their contracts way early. Like Jarrett Allen's at 20 million per year, but he signed his contract extension years ago, right? Yeah. If he was signing it now, he'd be at 30, 35 million per year. So the way it's going, I think he's probably going to be a high 20s, low 30s player. And the only reason maybe you don't is because of the health. Like maybe both sides just say, hey, like you've not played as much as we wanted you to. Yeah, I know I've not played as much as I wanted to, even though I'm producing at this level. Like I'm going to take this because I understand I've not been able to prove it for full seasons. And maybe that'd be a good outcome.
Yeah, and you know what? To be fair, that's that year, the year they decide to pay Mark Williams, that's Brandon Miller's last year of his rookie deal. So they get 12 months to like figure out they want to really lock in on this because you have to pay him and keep Mark and figure that out. Maybe they do a PJ situation, give him the extension, flip him later. But that, that's a future thing. But no, looking at the Hornets cap, it can go a few different directions for sure.
Yeah. If the Hornets did explore trading LaMelo Ball in a few years or whenever that might be, for whatever reason, okay, I thought it was really interesting how both the Kings and Dallas went about this trade cycle, right? Dallas didn't speak to anyone, identified who they wanted to speak to, did it in under darkness, cloak and dagger, no one knew. The Kings essentially, the star player said, I want to go here. And they were like, great, we're going to work with you to try and achieve what you want, but also we want to get back what we want. I think both teams probably I feel like the Kings have come out better. I mean, that's not hard, Dallas, come on. But I don't feel like you looked at that Kings haul and you went, wow. Like it was still kind of like, oh, is that it? I mean, it depends if that Zach LaVine stays healthy, basically, but right. I'm not sold on that. His knees at the age he is with 150 million of 3 years left. But I guess what I want to say is there is no absolute right way to deal with the star player, long-time drafted star player, trading them. Whatever you do, there'll always be aspects of the fan base will say, why didn't you do it this way? And both scenarios come with their challenges and benefits. I know people listening to this will be like, well, I didn't like what the Dallas Mavericks did. But sometimes the kind of trades out of nowhere, the surprising trades have worked out. We'll see if this one does, but sometimes they have worked out. And it does seem like this era of NBA teams giving up 5 first-round picks, 3 swaps, and hit this player. It feels like that might be going. We might have reached past that market value with the new CBA, the second aprons, the amount of talent that's in the league right now. I wonder if that Mikal Bridges Knicks trade. I wonder if that's the last one of those. Is that the last one we see of here's the farm for a goodish player who isn't even necessarily a top 10 player?
It kind of has to be, because I think from the Gobert thing, then the Durant thing, and the Mitchell, all that.
Donovan Mitchell,
it went way too crazy for way too all. There was so many of those.
Everyone just kept going all in at the poker table, right?
Yeah,
I'm all in. I'm all in.
So this new ownership is crazy, and it's very real. These Mavericks owners just did a madness for seemingly no reason. And yeah, I think we're entering hopefully I think we're entering a new stage, to your point, where these teams are going to be smarter with their draft picks. Because hopefully you want to imagine these GMs, these ownership groups are seeing what's happening and the value of rookie contracts with the apron. And keeping that flexibility alive is crucial to your front office when you have to make these crazy roster decisions and ever just do these random trades like this Drew Eubanks stuff. They just we got to get on the attacks, just dumping dudes and moving guys around. If you draft well and you maintain your draft assets, you can kind of avoid those panic trades just to get under a certain cap number.
Yeah. It's I have to think that Gabe Plotkin, Rick Schnall, they're watching all this play out, right?
Yeah.
And you have to think they've watched the Dallas Mavericks fan base, the national media reaction, and they've looked at that and go, huh. If we ever trade LaMelo Ball, here's a list of things we're not going to do. We're not going to say that we only talk to one team. We're not going to just botch and not have like a press release plan behind it. We're not going to just like trade for some older player who the fan base has like no lineage to whatsoever. Like there's a long list of lessons that I think they'll watch from this and going, wow, this is good for us to be aware of. And I would be very, very shocked if they executed any trade like the Dallas Mavericks have for Anthony Davis after seeing how this has gone down.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams are like, all right, we're not going to do it in conference. Not going to do it to every team. I'm not going to do it to the Lakers, especially. Like we got to. The NBA needs to stop helping the Lakers out because David Stern would not allow this. I'm convinced he would have rejected that trade just like he did with the Chris Paul deal back in the day. Like I was waiting for that to come through. We're like, you know what? We're not. No, that's not enough. This is craziness. This is madness. And no, it's done. It's done. And he's gonna sell a lot of jerseys. Lakers fans, I'm sure, are gassed right now. But yeah, the Maverick subreddit is a sad place to be at the moment. And my condolences out to them because they're going through it. They're really going through it.
Can I say I really don't appreciate the Hornets fans who are like, haha, at least I'm not a Dallas Mavericks fan. It's like no. We're not running victory laps here around anybody. Like I understand what you're saying, but like the upcoming Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis season is probably going to be still more exciting than anything this Hornets fan base has seen in a little while. As unpopular that is to say, but
Dallas is going to be in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like I would switch places with them in a heartbeat. Just even with the trade.
Yeah. In some ways, and I thought this even when Luke was there, is I was like, they made the trade for Gafford, they made the trade for PJ, and I'm like, oh, the Mavs are really going all in. They went for Klay Thompson, right, and didn't bring back Derek Jones Jr. Like they were already kind of going all in right now. And I was like, in some ways, like, maybe it's good if they win the championship. I thought this last year. Because if they win the championship, they reach the top of the mountain, everyone exhales, and everyone goes, we freaking did it. And no one cares if you give up, a top 10 pick in 2027.
Yeah.
And I still kind of feel that way now. Like if they were to win the championship this year, next year, that might not be a bad thing for that 2027 pick because the wear and tear that would put on the franchise, on the players going through all those rounds, the sense of accomplishment you get from those players older in their career. We know repeating is super hard, and we see that kind of drop off every year from championships. I'm just saying it wouldn't be the worst thing, even if the Mavericks are good for the next 2 years.
I promise. I'm rooting for the Mavericks because that's going to be the funniest thing. That's the funniest outcome in the league if the Mavericks get better, win a title without Luka, and all the fans have to walk it back. Like that for me as an observer, because we're not involved in any of this. So we're not even in the same conference, not even in the playoffs. So as an objective observer, the funniest thing to happen is if the Mavericks get better and go on a run and AD gets the title without LeBron, he gets a parade, all the stuff that they missed out on from the bubble title. Like, I'm here for it. And then when 2027 comes, praying on their downfall. That's where I'm at with the Mavericks. Hoping the best for now until 2027, and I hope for the worst.
Yeah. Look, last thing I want to touch on here. Why aren't the Hornets getting involved in these deals? I've seen that, I saw I replied to a tweet yesterday from somebody being like, the Charlotte Hornets can't just sit around and let these things happen and not pick up the phone and get involved.
What do they want to happen? Like,
well, that's exactly that's exactly what I said. I asked the question. I was like, it's really easy to say that, but what do you want them to do? Right? Like, you can't just say they should be making stuff happen. You have to be able to do something, like to suggest, okay, this is the path they should make. They can't just do stuff for the sake of it because we've not made a trade for a while. Like, the Hornets have made 2 trades this year: the Nick Richards deal, and they used their mid-level exception space to get all those second-round picks in that James Nagy trade, Daquan Jeffries, right at the start of the season. Like, the Hornets haven't just been sitting around doing nothing. They've not been doing anything very exciting about putting a better product on the court anytime soon. But what are you supposed to do? Just like trade for Brandon Ingram now because it's like, hey, like, he's available and he'll make us better right now. And then what? That's how, Charlotte have made this mistake in the past. They added Al Jefferson early in the rebuild. They traded for Nick Batum and got too excited with him and paid the Marvin Williams, Nick Batum, paid them all, Cody Zeller, all that summer. It ended up leaving this team in no man's land. And yes, I know the Al Jefferson teams were fun, and I know the Nick Batum, Kemba team was really good that one year. But like, there were fleeting moments of success which didn't galvanize the city or the franchise or change the culture. Unfortunately, the Hornets, while all these other teams are going all in, which like we just talked about, everyone at the poker table is throwing chips in the middle. It doesn't make sense for the Hornets to do that right now.
No.
They have to bide their time. And when they go all in is when all these other teams are aging out, when they're capped out, when their draft asset poor. And that's what the Charlotte Hornets have to do. It has to be that way. I know it's like next year is the year it starts. I've said this to you, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Next year, they are making the team better. It's not trade, every pick you've got to get players in the door for next year, but we're not trying to weaken our team to get good draft picks after next year. It's, can we make a smart move around the margin to get better? Can we bring in this key veteran? Can we not just use our mid-level exception to take on bad salary, but can we sign someone who actually helps us and fills a role? That's what stops happening from next year. But even then, it's not just like getting involved in big trades for the sake of it.
And that goes back to the 2027 Dallas pick and the Miami Heat pick they have. Like, when the time comes for them to add and go and get serious and get involved, the Hornets will have all of their own first-round picks to play with, and the Dallas and the Miami pick to potentially leverage. And then when you're talking about the Hornets getting involved anyway, all of the most tradable dudes are hurt right now. So Cody Martin out, Micic out, Cody just got hurt, right? Like, who are you gonna trade? Who's gonna trade for these dudes? They can't pass a physical right now, right? Grant Williams, he's a very movable piece, hurt, done for the year, right? It's who's going to be there to move, right? So it'll be a bold effort for the Hornets to get involved in any of these things, either in a straight up deal or a 3-team deal. They have contracts that can get involved with that type of stuff if they want to. And maybe take on some money and get some picks in return, maybe. But largely, a few days from the deadline, I don't expect much at this rate. Yeah. Unless something absolutely insane happens with Bridges. Like, that's the only real, like, high-end possibility of anything happening, in my opinion.
Yeah. Like we've already mentioned, they made their take-on salary. The Utah Jazz made the move, take on Hud Schifino, 2 second-round picks. They brought in, they sent out Eubanks, Like, they made that move. It's like, why aren't the Hornets doing this? And it's like, well, because they've already done that move just basically in preseason. Now, the question will be, and it'll be interesting to see, getting those second-round picks and Daquan Jeffries in preseason, there was opportunity cost there, right? Jeff Peterson thought, I'm not going to get a better offer at the trade deadline than this offer I've got right now, so I'm going to take it. And we're going to find out, right? Because there's loads of teams who have like 12 million MLE in cap space. There's loads of teams who have that. We're going to find out, do those teams get more than Jeff Peterson got in the preseason trade at this trade deadline, or are they going to get less? And that will be either a big green tick or a big red cross. And we're going to know later this week.
I'm here for it. And then, the only thing with the picks is just the notion that the Hornets are going to owe now Sacramento 2 second rounders. So anytime they can collect second rounders, it's kind of like, making yourself whole ahead of time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's a big reason that Nick Richards trade. One of the underrated reasons I liked it is because I think it was 2026 when the Hornets aren't going to have a second rounder because of this first that turns into 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And they now added a second rounder through that Nick Richards trade, from memory. And it's not going to be like a mid second, probably from my memory off the top of my head. So they've already kind of got out ahead of that and been like, right, we're not going to have a second in that year. Bang. Like, we moved Nick Richards. We didn't just get any second. We got one in the year where we don't have one. Like, that's a nice little thing to be able to do, to address. So they've already addressed that, I think, in some of these moves to make up for the previous regime's mistakes. Right, Sam. We are, as we record, 72 hours, basically, just under, until the NBA trade deadline. Look, last week, I think I said maybe the number of trades over under was like 1.5 and 2.5 due to those injuries. I'm right there with you. If we make like the over under, there might be like 0.5 for trades. Like, just guys being hurt is always going to make it less likely, even if they're not super serious. The Cody Martin one's sports hernia now. That to me sounds like it's going to be surgery. I don't know of a sports hernia that has ever like been rehabbed. It doesn't really happen. So there's not been anything about that, but I expect that to be the case. So that kind of probably kills that one. Micic seems like he'll be around. Koji should be back in a month, it seems like. So maybe there's still some value there, but not a lot of buzz right now about the Charlotte Hornets. I still think they'll be involved in something around the edges. They'll like do a Daquan Jeffries for a bigger salary trade to like save someone else money or something like that. But that's kind of what I expect to see from them right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's boring, but smart, right? The Hornets should probably just hang tight. And
we had the fun deadline last year. You can't have it every year, right?
We got spoiled. Definitely got spoiled.
The year before, it was, I think, the Mason Plumlee trade, right? And then last year we got Hayward, Washington, Rozier.
Yeah.
There was a lot going on last year. So, like I say, we can't have fun every single year. And I always thought this was going to be the year of like, it's probably going to be pretty tame.
I hope because we said that things are going to go crazy tomorrow. Like, we have to do an emergency podcast type.
Well, we will be on. We will be on doing emergency podcast if the Hornets do make a trade, as long as it's something that is not like they had a top 55 second round pick for Daquan Jeffries. We might not hop on for emergency trade for one of those. I'm picking on Daquan Jeffries. He's actually been all right this year.
I like him.
I know. So do I. So do I. He's been a pleasant surprise. Sam, before we get out of here, anything else? Any shout outs to any Hornets players the last couple of games? I know we've not talked about the games. They've been, gutsy, but any particular shout outs you want to make before we get out?
No, I mean, I feel personally responsible for jinxing Josh Okogie.
Yeah.
I got too excited and he got hurt. Like, that's my fault, bro. I'm sorry, dog. That's on me. That's on me. And then Micic the same game. Micic's last 2 games, he's like got hit in the chest and like really looks like he's hurt. Like, he's listed for an ankle soreness, but I look like he like tore a pec or something like that. The way he reacts to getting hit in the chest is so weird. But
he's a tough MFer, right? Micic, like, they're building different in Serbia. He might not be athletic, he might not be quick, but he's tough, man. Like, he's a tough guy.
Yeah, and they got the Wizards tonight. Chance for redemption after going 0 for 2 last couple of times. Is rough, bro.
Who's favorite in this game?
Let's see. ESPN has the Hornets -5.5.
Really? What?
Yeah.
That's wild. Hornets shouldn't be favored by 5 against anybody.
-200 money line for the Hornets. Washington +165 money line.
Yeah, -5. Wow. That's I mean, KJ Simpson might be starting at point guard. Sam. I didn't think Micic was just going to play. I don't know how he could play after I saw that ankle twist. Like,
by the way,
I don't know.
This is not. I mean, okay. The ESPN and the Hornets injury report has never been right, and they only have Tajon Salon listed here. as out. Or sorry, game time decision. Sorry.
Maybe they've exceeded the character limit.
Like I understand why ESPN's wouldn't be paying too much attention to the Hornets, but like I feel like year after year, game after game, there's never on top of the injury report.
Even T-John Salon's been freaking ill and not been playing for the Greens for Swarm.
Yeah.
Not even playing for the Hornets and he's missing games. Come on, man. Safe,
bro. Watch out. Hornets fans, watch out, man. Something's going on.
Golly. Right. Let's leave it there. We just hit the hour mark. Sam, thanks for jumping on. Look, let's hopefully something happens this week, some trade-wise. Give us some content. Hopefully look, I'd rather them make no move at all than just make a move for the sake of making a move. So let's see how it goes. But thank you guys for listening in. Thanks for sticking with us in the midst of another depressingly difficult year. And we will speak to you maybe later this week. If not, we'll speak to you next Monday.